you ask a learning manager, what's your biggest nightmare? A common response from across organizations would be when their stakeholders say, we don't have time for learning. With the attention span getting shorter and the breadth of learning topics expanding, this problem is starting to take an ominous shape. And while sometimes the stakeholders really don't have the time, sometimes they are also saying, your training isn't worth my time. I have personally known people to make time for the things that they see value in. A deeper look into the issue would suggest that the roots go a lot deeper. In school, for instance, teachers had a captive audience and the students had no choice but to learn no matter what. In organizations, on the other hand, the audience is not captive and they have a choice on whether they want to attend training or not. They choose to miss out any learning opportunities which do not seem relevant to them. The truth is, learning functions are often perceived as departments that work in isolation. They periodically come in and force some learning hours and then they go away. This happens more in organizations that have a learning mandate. Most of my colleagues in the learning function are extremely passionate individuals, and they have unparalleled conviction in what they do. And you can see how their conviction in this situation becomes an extremely tricky issue. So what's the impact? There are a bunch of employees attending trainings mandated by their managers, which at best they feel is a welcome break from work. Since these trainings are also vehicles of employee engagement, especially in this remote working scenario, not everyone seems to mind either. The problem, however, is the impact of leadership and behavioral training is extremely tough to measure, and there are quite a few instances of L&D functions in the best case being asked to justify budgets and in the worst case receiving lower budgets. On aggravating, this could soon spiral into a situation where some learning functions would struggle for existence in some organizations. So are we saying that the leadership in these organizations don't see value in learning? Quite the opposite. So many leaders across multiple industries in the world continue to emphasize on learning for organizational efficacy. Their emphasis is even more on soft skills, which ironically are hard skills to learn and even harder to measure. Then why do learning functions tend to struggle? Luckily, there is a simple answer to this complex issue that I have discussed, and I can actually answer this in one word: relevance. The answer is simple, but bringing relevance is tougher than it sounds. So how do learning functions bring in relevance? I recommend a three-pronged approach. First, the first step to relevance lies in collaboration. Learning functions should try and create their content along with their stakeholders wherever possible. This model of co-creation does a world of good to the relevance because now you have stories from the group and you can test the relevance of your learning material against these stories. Second, the learning functions should also revisit the reporting structure. While they can continue to report to a central learning and development head, the dotted line reporting to the stakeholder leadership should be strengthened to the extent possible. Stakeholder advocacy is critical for a learning and development professional. The learning and development head, on the other hand, can play the role of a consultant to seek feedback and share industry insights and best practices. The L&D professional should be a part of the unit's strategy discussion and in fact their key responsibility areas should be derived from the unit's strategic plan and be signed off by the unit leadership. Learning delivered at the right time is effective learning. Presenting your achievements effectively is a great skill to learn at any time of the year. But the learning amplifies when this skill is taught right before the appraisal. The learners feel that they have learned what is relevant, and in fact they can readily apply these skills almost immediately. And this fact actually caters to the kinesthetic learners, and the learning solidifies. The learning world is slowly moving away from the paradigm of just-in-case learning to just-in-time learning. The bamboo sapling that takes time to sprout, but once they do, they grow at an unprecedented pace. Learning amplifies individuals' potential in exactly the same way. Learning functions are the nourishment that every employee needs, and when delivered in the right proportion at the right time, the growth is unprecedented and awe-inspiring. Let's deliver our learning right.